Okay, so a little while ago, I started this series of What is the Required One from Me Anyway, which was kind of a play on a TV show from a very long time ago called Whose Line Is It Anyway? And the whole point of the series was to break down what exactly the required wants from you, because that is where a lot of people go wrong. Not because they don't understand the content, not because they haven't marked up their scenario, but because they simply haven't broken down the required. And I know we didn't get around to doing a ManFin edition back then because I was on my way to Bali and then it was marking and then it was December, but we're back at it. And I think it's a really good time to do this one because ManFin has a lot of those really, really weird requirements. So without further ado, we are going to get into it. Okay, so let's start at the top. Okay, so breaking down the required. Starting with something like required A that says discuss the key risks that Freshcart was exposed to in its operating environment before it shifted to an eco-friendly strategy. Ignore the risks that would be addressed by a shift to an eco-friendly strategy. So what this means is you now need to word, because it says key risks, and key risks can include two things. Key risks, you might also be familiar with business risks, so those are the same thing. Okay, and our business risks from a ManFin perspective include both our operational and our financial risks. So this means that while you are reading through this entire scenario, you are looking for risks. So that's why I've put this little note to myself at the top here. It's to say, I need to be thinking about key risks as I'm reading through this. Okay, so you can see what I did was I marked it up with a little R so that it would be easy enough for me to find the little R's and do what I call the plug and play. Now, when you are wording a key risk, okay, you need to say, what is the risk factor? Why is it a risk? And it cannot be something surface level like there is a foreign exchange risk. Okay, why is that a problem? That could cause fluctuations and lead to losses that are incurred if they haven't hedged against it. Okay, so key risks, we're always thinking about what is the risk and why is it a risk, linking it to something that's either operational or financial. Okay, so that's the first one. Then the next one says critically evaluate the strategic actions that they have undertaken to become more eco-friendly. So this means you are going to need to find the piece of the scenario where they speak about becoming eco-friendly. So there we found it. And you can see I left myself a note here to say critically evaluate. So I'm going to look at all of the strategic actions that they have taken, and I'm going to critically evaluate. Critically evaluate means I need to be saying, what are the merits of this strategy? And what are the downfalls of the strategy? Okay, if it was criticized, I'd only focus on the downfalls. Okay, then taking a look at required C, it says write a memorandum. So this is telling me I have a format mark that I can get here, in which you critically review the decision to vote against a rights issue as a means of reducing the company's debt. Now, critically review, critically evaluate, same. We're looking at the merits of the decision and the downfalls of the decision. And they even tell you here, include calculations and key ratios. So you are going to include any calculations relating to the rights issue, and you're going to include any calculations relating to debt, because that's what the rights issue is aimed at, reducing the company's debt. Okay. So you can see this is a nice big 26 mark question, and they told you that the majority of the marks came from discussion. So yes, some calculations, but your discussion of those calculations and essentially the points that they've considered in the decision, that's going to be where you get all of your marks. So if we take a look at it, I think it was over here. So here they spoke about they were voting against the rights issue for 2 reasons. And because this required is saying to me that I need to critically review their decision, it means that everything that I'm discussing is going to be embedded in what's in this scenario. So that's why I numbered points to talk about, because that's where my critically review is going to be sitting, not in theory dumping, and that's where so many of you go wrong with ManFin. Okay, then the next one, okay, that was ethical behavior and ethical leadership. I think that was all for this specific one. Right, let's take a look at another one. Okay, so this was for June 2024. And there was a specific one I wanted to look at here, F. Okay, so with required F, it says here, discuss the following aspects that they should have considered before changing from diesel generators to solar systems. Okay, so this is very much a strategy type of question. They've got a governance and business ethics piece. Okay, and this is not separate in ManFin just because it looks like an auditing type of question. You're still going to think governance, Companies Act, King, business ethics, good for self, good for others. Okay, if there's a CASA, any CPC. So it doesn't change just because it's in a ManFin type of question. It's the same principles. Okay, and then strategic and other qualitative factors. Now, in order to answer a question about strategy, you need to know what's going on in the business. Okay, so if we scroll down, you would need to know what they are currently doing, how they are currently running their operations in order to know if a switch from diesel generators to solar system is actually going to work. So there's again going to be points under this specific section that you're going to need to drag out of the scenario and into your discussion. So you can see I had little negatives and positive signs. I had little R's because these were extra points I needed to bring in from a strategic or a qualitative perspective. So I hope you're seeing the common theme here is that everything is very much strategy, scenario driven. That's why you guys go wrong with ManFin type questions, because you want to theory dump, you want to regurgitate a memo that you saw once upon a time instead of using your reading time to number discussion points that you can bring up. Okay. Next one. So this one was quite a cool one. And again, you're going to see it's so reliant on the scenario and bringing in points from the scenario. It says critically evaluate the task performed by ChatGPT as part of their process of identifying and evaluating the suitability of potential investments based on the earnings-based valuation, the additional work to assess the reasonability of the forecast income statement, and it says do not perform any calculations or re-perform any calculations. So this means, again, we're dealing with a critically evaluate. So we're looking at the merits. So what has it done correctly? What has it done incorrectly? Now, the other piece that you're going to have to keep in mind here is that they are saying it's an earnings-based valuation, which means you are going to need to critically review this valuation using the principles that you have on earnings-based valuations. Okay, so if we go down, we can see here is the valuation that ChatGPT has performed. So every single line, and this is where you're going to go line by line through what it's done. We subtract the non-renewed contract profit of 3.2 million. Considering my earnings-based valuation principles, is this correct to do? Yes, I can mention that, okay? I can mention it's non-renewed, it's once off, I need to remove it from my earnings. That is correct. I can get a mark for saying that because it's critically evaluate. The resumption of bonus payments will reduce the net profit starting in 2024, but it doesn't affect the 2023 profits. Okay, now this is where you guys go wrong as well. You just look at this line and you don't incorporate the rest of the information. Okay, so you need context, which is what is the company doing, and you need to pull in the other information from the scenario, and it needs to be linked to principles on valuations. So here they spoke about resumption of bonus payments, but if you had looked at the note that this information was found in, it also spoke about share options. Okay, it spoke about how much the bonus payments are going to be. You would need to incorporate your understanding of the rest of the scenario into your critically evaluate. Okay, you'd need to think about if there's anything else given in the context that hasn't been considered that you know should be considered using your principles. Okay, so that's critically evaluate, perform evaluation using the free cash flow valuation. I think that one would be fine. Discuss the risks and other relevant strategic factors. So now there's quite a lot we can talk on here. That they should consider regarding this decision to make use of an AI such as ChatGPT in performing the valuation. Now, most of you want to sort of go straight into theory dumping. What do I know about ChatGPT? But again, it's going to be guided by your scenario. So you are going to read through this section on artificial intelligence technology, and you're going to be reading for risks. You're going to be reading for strategic implications. Promise you, this is why you guys are losing ManFin marks, because you are trying to regurgitate theory. Okay, instead of being guided by the points in your scenario. And the only way to find the points in your scenario is to mark them up during your reading time. Okay. Ethical considerations, controls, governance concerns. Okay, I think that was it. Okay, and then this last one, this is one of the latest IAC papers. This is from June 2025. There was a specific one I wanted to look at here. Okay, here. So required F says, critically evaluate whether the decisions of the board of directors align with its strategic objectives. Do not discuss sustainability and environmental. Do not discuss regulatory compliance and governance issues. So take note of these scope exclusions, because what are you guys going to do? You're going to go to this decision that they've made at the board level. I can't remember where exactly it's sitting now, but I think it was somewhere over here. Okay, the goals are as follows. Okay, so they're giving the goals. Anyway, so you're going to find where those board decisions are sitting, and you're going to tell yourself, you're going to leave yourself a note to say, do not consider in critically evaluating whether this aligns with the strategic objectives. Now, a lot of you are going to read a required like this and fall apart, but you don't need to fall apart, because all you need to do is find the decisions in the scenario, find the strategic objectives in the scenario, and see if the decision aligns with the strategic objective. That's it. It's not something you have to try regurgitate. It's literally being handed to you on a silver platter. Here is 9 marks for you. Okay, so it's very scenario intensive. Okay, perform a net present value. Okay, I think that one is fine. Evaluate, and this is again critically evaluate. So even if it just says evaluate, we're still going to follow the same thought process for critically evaluate. So what are the merits? What are the downfalls? The performance forecast, if it's in line with sustainability, environmental stewardship, and strategic goals. Okay. You also need to think about non-financial performance indicators. So this is a performance evaluation question. Use your performance evaluation principles and keep in mind. So here's the information. Keep in mind the strategic goals, the sustainability, the environmental stuff. So they've given all that information to you. Go and see whether this provided forecast is going to align with that. And most importantly, do not forget the specific information. Okay, so most importantly, do not forget this information over here. A lot of you, as soon as you see a table or you see financial statements, you kind of overlook anything above it, and there's a lot of gems in there. So you can see I made little asterisks there because those are discussion points I want to pull in. Okay, and then the last one is write a report in which you advise on the best option for financing. So again, reports telling us format. We need to compare two different sources of financing. Okay, and then they tell us certain assumptions that we need to include. Again, you are not going to try and regurgitate theory from financing that you've learned somewhere along the line. You are going to be driven by the information in the scenario. So here we can see they've given us financing. We are going to use every bit of information in here to talk about the financing options. Okay, so you see I left myself a little note here. So I'm going to extract information from the scenario, link it to my financing principles, and ultimately I'm going to compare these two so that I can give a suggestion. I need to include a conclusion because they've asked for that. Okay, so I hope this helps. ManFin requireds can get very, very creative, but the overarching theme is that they are all scenario driven, backed by principles, backed by context, which is what is going on in this company. You will not be able to get through a ManFin required by theory dumping. You need to bring in the scenario, link it to your principles. And all of these things, compare, critically, evaluate, criticize. You've seen all of these before. Just make sure you are identifying the key things in the required and finding where that's sitting in the scenario.